So, ladies and gents, as I said, today is going to be a little bit different. Before we get into our reading, I do want to recover one thing. That's rhetoric. That's what we're going to be focusing on when we're reading today, because in our story, we are going to get introduced again to Captain Beatty. He's going to come into the story. He's going to be trying to persuade Montag to come back to work. By doing this, he's going to be using a couple different types of rhetoric. So I want to briefly cover rhetoric one more time. I don't want you to have to copy all this stuff down once more. So I was able to print it all on one sheet. It's all kind of small. But we did take these notes once before. So you do have access to them. Or if you don't like this sheet, then you can always look at it online as well. All right? But we'll be looking briefly at rhetoric. Our three main types of rhetoric. Here we go. They are called ethos, pathos, and logos. There are a number of ways that we can utilize these three types of rhetoric, which is all rhetoric is how we convince people to agree with us or to do something. We use ethos, pathos, and logos. Every single day, you are trying to be persuaded to do something or to buy something. To get on this, to get on that, whatever. If you are on Facebook, even, there are going to be commercials trying to get you to buy something. Even if you're on a lot of your apps, there's sometimes every once in a while come up in a commercial trying to get you to buy this or buy that. They're all using rhetoric or a type of rhetoric. Our first ones that we're going to be looking at are going to be ethos. So if I scroll down just a little bit so you can see it. Ethos is appealing to one's character on the basis of morality or competence. Why should you trust Facebook? Because it's one of the oldest forms of social media. Because it's so well used. Because it's awesome. Pathos is appealing to one's emotions. You should buy this truck because it'll make you feel like a man. You should buy this truck because it'll make you feel cool, whatnot. Logos is appealing to one's reason. This is why you should buy this truck, because it can go so far with so little gas. The miles per gallon is amazing. Factual things. So basically, we have making yourself look good or making someone else look good, making you feel a certain way, and logic and facts. Those are different three ways of trying to convince people to buy something or to persuade them to do anything, really. A couple examples of ethos here. I am a father, a taxpayer, and have served as a senator for 20 years. I deserve your vote to continue my service. Notice here the use of I. I did this, I am that. So that you think that you can connect to him. I'm a father, a taxpayer, and I have served as a senator for 20 years. I deserve your vote to continue my service. I've done this for so long. You should trust me, essentially. That's why you'll notice teachers and doctors and almost any other type of college graduate will usually put their degrees on the wall. That's a form of ethos. This is why you should listen to me, because I have this, this, and that. That's it. That's a form of ethos, building yourself up. Why you should listen to them. Pathos is going to be about feelings, passions. Imagine for a moment a tragic collision on the Parks Highway. A family is killed and many others are injured. The cause is determined to be frosties. We must use funds to pay for road improvements. So right here they're trying to get more state funds for road improvements. How they do that is by making up this short story about this sad family dying. So that's trying to make you feel bad. This is what those commercials, I forget the title, the anagram for it. But the ESPCA, I think it is. Is that it? ASPCA? Oh well. The animal commercials where they have dogs shaking in cages. They'll have a little ugly chihuahua with its eye like really large. Over here they'll have really sad looking boxers. They'll have cats who look like they're shaven. Things like that. And they're all shaking and cold. And you can pay 20 cents a day and these animals can eat. Like that type of stuff. Making you feel bad. That's going to be a form of pathos. They're really trying to hit those emotions. Next is going to be logos. The example they have for us, Alaska's roads are in a state of disrepair. Without quality roads, our transportation system will falter and hinder our economy. Hence, we must use more state funds to pay for road repairs. Same idea, they want road repairs. To do that, though, they did a much more logical, sound route. They went with facts. Because of this, this will happen. Because this will happen, we need this. Something very factually based. Those are our three different types of rhetoric: ethos, pathos, and logos that we're going to be looking at. How they do that is pretty wide and varied. You can see that in the rhetorical strategies section over here. They have a number of things that we can use to do this. We're not going to be looking at the rhetorical strategies necessarily. We're going to be looking at the broad strokes. Is he using ethos, pathos, or logos as we are reading? So you need out a pen or pencil as per usual. All we're going to be doing the rest of the day is just reading. It's going to be 10 pages, but because those 10 pages are kind of difficult to get through, it might take us the entire time. So let's go ahead and make sure our cell phones are completely put away, headphones taken out. Thank you very much. Those people who have their headphones still in, let's make sure those are taken out. Thank you. Cell phones, make sure they're not a distraction. You can put them in a bag or in a pocket. Yesterday, you read independently a little bit about Montag and Mildred, a really big connection to them. Hopefully, you are now like me, and you absolutely hate Mildred, because she is an annoying little insect of a woman. In fact, that's how Montag described her, as insect-like. That she is, I believe he said, that her skin was as pale as uncooked bacon, which is a very harsh burn. That her body is thin like an insect from dieting so much. That the red of her lips is so thickly painted on. He described her in a very negative viewpoint, but also her character in general is kind of a hateful, spiteful, childlike character. Or she is very childlike. She thinks very selfishly almost the entire time. Right here is our entrance of Captain Beatty in the Phoenix car. The Phoenix is a symbol of their work, and that's what's driving up. We're continuing still with our reading aloud. If you want to, for bonus points, we do have that test on Friday. Would anyone like to read? Marius, go ahead and start us off there.
There's a Phoenix car just driven up, and a man in a black shirt, an orange snake stitched on his arm coming from his front wall. Captain Beauty, he said. Captain Beatty. Montag did not move, but stood looking in the cold whiteness of the wall immediately before him. Go let him in, will you? Tell him I'm sick. Tell him yourself. She ran a few steps this way, a few steps back, and stopped, eyes wide. The front door speaker called her name. Softly, softly. Mrs. Montag, someone here, Mrs. Montag, someone's here, baby.
Go ahead and stop there. So we're getting a little bit of an introduction to really good writing here. He didn't just say that she was nervous. What did he do instead? Instead of telling us that she's nervous, what did he have her do? Walk back and forth. This showcases really good writing ability right here. She ran a few steps this way, a few steps that, and stopped, her eyes wide, and the front door speaker called her name softly. Okay, this section here showcases how good of a writer Ray Bradbury is. I'm just going to go just right up here, just going to say an example of great writing. In fact, what this is called showing and not telling. A lot of times we just tell you what these people are thinking. We tell you they were nervous. They did this and they felt that. This is how you can show us what they're feeling. It's a really great use of language and of descriptions. So instead of telling us that she's nervous, we actually see her walking a few steps this way, a few steps this way. not knowing what to do. Would anyone like to continue? Sebastian, I saw your hand. Go ahead.
Montag made sure the book was well hidden behind the pillow, climbed slowly back into bed, arranged the covers over his knees and across his chest, half sitting, and after a while Mildred moved and went out of the room, and Captain Beatty strolled in, his hands in his pockets. "Shut the relatives up," said Beatty, looking around at everything except Montag and his wife. This time Mildred ran. The yammering voices stopped yelling in the parlor.
Stop there for a minute, all right? All right. This is just pure conjecture, all right? You're sitting right there. Come on. This is just pure conjecture on my part, all right? Conjecture. But notice how he walks in. How does he walk in? Sorry? Y'all kind of muttered it. How did he walk in? He strolled in, hands in his pockets, right? Usually when you walk into someone's house for the first time, you're usually not strolling in like it's normal. Like, oh, yeah, yep, I've been here 1,000 times. No. Usually you walk in a little bit more nervous because it's somewhere brand new for you. But we see here, Captain Beatty strolled in, hands in his pockets. This guy is comfortable. He knows exactly who he is, where he is, and why he is there. Isn't that kind of strange? To be comfortable in a brand new place? Usually if you go to a friend's house for the first time, you're like, I don't know what to do. Can I go to the kitchen and get a glass of water? Is that okay? Am I allowed to? But after a while, you get really comfortable. You're like one of the family. Here, we see him already being very comfortable, which could tell us a little bit of something. Just a little bit. I'm just conjecturing here. Maybe he's comfortable. Maybe he's been here before. My own thinking here. I also noticed that earlier, whenever Montag asked her, can you quiet the TV? She did not care, right? She said, that's my family. But as soon as Captain Beatty walks in, shut the relatives up. This time Mildred ran. The yammering voices stopped yelling in the parlor. So Mildred ran this time. Shut the relatives up. And Mildred ran. Very different with how she treats Montag versus how she treats Captain Beatty. Go ahead and continue reading for us.
Captain Beatty sat down in the most comfortable chair with a peaceful look on his ruddy face. He took time to prepare and light his brass pipe and puff out a great smoke cloud. Just thought I'd come by and see how sick the man is. How do you guess? Beatty smiled his smile, which showed the candy pinkness of his gums and the tiny candy whiteness of his teeth. I've seen it all. You were going to call for a night off. Montag sat in bed.
All right. So again, we get another instance of him being super comfortable. Comfortable enough just to sit there, take his time while they're staring at him. He gets his pipe ready, lights it, and starts puffing away. He is oddly comfortable, and neither one of them are brave enough to say anything to him. It's insane to me. But also, he has this knowing smile about him. Beatty smiled a smile which showed the candy thickness of his gums, the tiny candy whiteness of his teeth. I've seen it all. So we're having this guy who's extremely comfortable waltz into their house and act like he owns the place. In fact, even the wife, who does not follow her husband Montag's directions, follow his directions by the drop of a hat. I think this could be two different things here. One, I think it could be that he just has a presence, a commanding presence, or the fact that Mildred followed his directions, like on a drop of a hat. Maybe there's something that maybe there was a relationship between them two. I don't know. That one's just conjecture, though, on me. All right, would anyone else like to continue reading for us? Yes, go ahead, Jocelyn.
Well said, Beatty. Take the night off. He examined his external matchbox, the lid of which said guaranteed 1 million license ignited, and began to strike the chemical match abstractly. Blow out, strike out, strike, blow out, strike, speak 3 words, blow out. He looked at the flame, he looked at the smoke. When will you be well? Tomorrow, the next day maybe, first of the week. Beatty puffed his pipe. Every fireman sooner or later hits this. This only need they only need understanding to know how the wheels run. Need to know the history of our profession. They don't feed it to rookies like they used to. Damn shame. Puff. Only fire chiefs remember it now. Puff. I'll let you in on it. Mildred fidgeted. Beatty took a full minute to settle himself in and think back for what he wanted to say.
All right. So, I don't know if any of y'all have ever felt the presence of a full minute of someone getting ready, like getting comfortable. It's a surprisingly long amount of time whenever you're just sitting there. For instance, that's one full minute. This guy walks into their house, that just waltzes in like he owns the place, and takes a full minute of them staring at him just to sit there and get ready to tell his story. This guy is confident in himself. Confidence itself can be a form of rhetoric. How you present yourself can be. So all this section here is building up the tension inside of Montag and Mildred. It is forcing them to feel something differently than they may have already felt. What is it? What form of rhetoric is it whenever you make them change the way you feel?
Pathos?
Pathos. Yes, make sure you're referring back to those sheets. That's why I put it off. I know it's kind of small writing though. So this whole section of them fidgeting, of them getting ready right here, this is actually all pathos happening right here. This is all pathos being built. He is using just his presence to make them feel uncomfortable, to change their emotions. That's pathos at the very beginning of this. What do you want to finish reading this half page? Go ahead, Jacob.
When did it all start? You down to about how did it come about where it went? Well, I say it really got started around about a thing called the Civil War. Even though our world book came to it kind of early, the fact that we didn't get along well until photography came into its point. Then most of people in the early 20th century, radio, television, things began to have mass. Once they sat in the bed, I moved. And because they had mass, it became simple. They'd be once books appealed to a few people, here, there, everywhere. They could afford to be different. The world was roaming, but then the world got full of eyes and elbows and mouths. Double, triple, quadruple population. Films, radios, magazines, books, melodramas, sort of paper player. Do you follow me? I think so.
All right, so before you turn the page here, things began to have mass to it. We actually use this term mass today, and it has a couple of different definitions to it. But how he's using it, let's look at how he is connecting it to. The fact is we didn't get along well until photography came into its own, then motion pictures in the early 20th century, radio, television. These things are called mass media here. All these things are mass media. So when we're talking about mass media, it means the people that we can reach with our information. That's what he means by mass. So not a people that we can reach. we can reach with info. The amount of people we can reach with info. I just did a W/info. I know it's a little bit low for everyone in the back. It's the amount of people that we can reach with info, with our info. That's what it means by mass here in this section. How much information can we pump out to the masses of people so that they can actually understand us? Because so much more people can get the information we have. Peoples, as I said down here, and because they had mass, they became simpler. It's difficult to give you a whole, let's say, 1,000 people to understand something really difficult. So we make it really simple for you to understand. Once books appealed to a few people, here, there, everywhere. They could afford to be different. The world was roomy, but then the world got full of eyes and elbows and mouths. Double, triple, quadruple populations. What we're seeing now, right? It's difficult to have a really hard to understand concept where everyone gets it or teaching everyone through TV or through the news. Goodness gracious, the news itself. And instead, we have to keep it really short and simple. The idea of thermonuclear dynamics or whatever. No, this is heat. It's simple. This is the entire political spectrum. No, this is what this one person said. We shouldn't vote for them. You have to keep things simple because it's going out to so many people. So many people means there's going to be a lot less understanding itself. Next page, would anyone else like to read? Go ahead, Amir.
Leading period at the smoke pattern he had put out on the air. Picture 19th century man with his horses, dogs, carts, slow motion. Then in the 20th century, speed up your camera. Books cut shorter, condensation, digest, tabloids. Everything boils down to the gag, snap in. Snap in, Mildred nodded. Classics cut to the 15-minute radio show. Then cut again to fill a 2-minute book column. Winding up a last of 10 or 12 line dictionary resume. I exaggerate, of course. Dictionaries were for a reference, but many were those whose sole knowledge of Hamlet, Tyler certainly, Montag, is probably only a faint rumor of Tyler mentions Montag, whose sole knowledge, as Hamlet, was a one-page digest in the book that claimed, now at least you can read all the classics, keep up with your neighbors. Do you see? Out of the nursery into the college and back to the nursery. There's your intellectual pattern for the past 5 centuries or more.
Yeah, so here we're seeing a form of very informative type of argument here. What is that called when it comes to rhetoric? We have good factual ideas, that logic. Logos here is what we're seeing being used in this section. Logos for these 2 full paragraphs. This idea of time going from this slow time to all of a sudden things moving faster is something we can see actually actively happening today in life. Heck, a lot of times, a lot of students will hate living in the suburbs. Because it's so slow and it's so boring. There's nothing to do here. But I want to go to the city one day. Why? Because it's much more active. It's faster paced when it comes to life. That's what we're seeing here with this argument. At first, 19th century man with those dogs and cats and horses, everything was slow motion. But then things started to pick up in the 20th century. Speed your camera. Books cut shorter. Condensations, digest, tabloids. Everything boils down to the gag, the snap ending. How many of y'all, your sole knowledge of Donald Trump are those small little snippets of lines he supposedly has said? Happens. Or you can do vice versa with Biden or Kamala or even back when Obama was in office. Everyone's trying to use that snap ending to make you like, oh yeah, I hate that. What else did he say? No idea. But I hate that one thing he said. He next continues on with books, which is a travesty, of course. He goes along with Hamlet. Hamlet's an amazing play. I've even been thinking about us reading Hamlet, so that could be an idea. We do have to read some form of Shakespeare, generally speaking. So I might get us to read Hamlet soon. Who knows? You like the idea of Hamlet? Cool. But it's a pretty decently long play. If you watched it from beginning to end, it would probably take about 3.5 to 4 hours of you watching it, actually actively being acted out. But he's saying, and you can read it in about that time too, and how he is saying that those ideas, all that wonderful 4 hours, gets condensed into smaller and smaller segments, all the way to the very end where it's just a single page where you can read the entire story, which you can't. You're getting a little snippet of it, a summary essentially. And a summary misses a lot of the information. But this is logos actively being used. He also is using some rhetorical devices, rhetorical strategies you can see on your last page, here especially with his rhetorical questions. Right here, do you see? Continuing on, would anyone else like to read? Go ahead, look at it.
Mildred arose and began to move around the room, picking things up and putting them down. Edie ignored her and continued. Speed up the film, one tap, click. Click this look eye now. Click here, there. Switch, pace, up, down, in, out, wide. How, who, what, where, and, bang, smack, while, bang, bong, boom. Digest, politics. One column, two sentences, a headline, then in the mid-air, all vanishes. Whirlman's mind around about so fast under the pumping hands of the publishers, exploiters, broadcasters, that the centrifuge flings off all unnecessary, time-wasting thoughts.
Just real quick here. Notice here this part is kind of confusing a little bit. He's making them speed up their thoughts a little bit here, and not just a little bit, a lot here. If he is trying to actively confuse them, you could argue that confusion is an emotion of feeling here. I believe this right here is a little bit more of that pathos being in action. He is trying to put Montag on his back foot, not understanding, going, hold up, what? My thoughts are having to go so fast I don't understand what you're saying here. I do believe that this is a form of pathos happening here, and you can disagree with me if you want to. I completely understand that, but I'm seeing a little bit of pathos being built here. Mildred smoothed the bedclothes. Montag felt his heart jump and jump again as she patted his pillow. So, he, of course, right here, he is terrified of her patting his pillow because what's behind his pillow? The books, remember? And that would look really bad if all of a sudden, while Captain Beatty is there, his wife pulls a book from behind him. That's going to be a bit of an issue. Right now, she was pulling at his shoulder to try to get him to move so she could take the pillow and fix it nicely and put it back. And perhaps cry out and stare or simply reach down her hand and say, "What's this?" and hold up the hidden book with touching innocence. Does she agree that reading books is a good thing? Or that she's interested in reading books? No, she's not interested at all. In fact, she told us yesterday that Clarice, she's happy that she died. Right? And how dare she even think about reading any books, possibly. But also, we just know that she is not into the idea of reading books. She hates that idea completely. So, this touching innocence, perhaps cry out and stare or simply reach down her hand and say, "What's this?" and hold up the hidden book with touching innocence, trying to make it seem like she is innocent. And Montag is guilty. She, with that statement, could be trying to make it where she looks innocent and Montag is guilty. That's what she could be making it look like by doing that. That's why you're going to see how Montag acts in these next couple of sections. The whole time, make sure to remember this, the whole time that they're freaking out a little bit, Montag and Mildred, Captain Beatty is still talking. He's still going. Like nothing's stopping him whatsoever. School is shortened. Discipline relaxed. Philosophies, histories, languages dropped. English and spelling gradually neglected. Finally almost completely ignored. Life is immediate. The job counts. Pleasure lies all about after work. Why learn anything save pressing buttons, pulling switches, fixing nuts and bolts? That's continuing the idea. If life gets simpler and simpler and simpler, why should you have to learn anything difficult? Why do I need to know how to spell or be disciplined or know any other histories or language? Why? When all I need to do is just press buttons and pull switches and fix maybe bolts and nuts all day. That's it. This idea is continuing this idea of logos that we have, the idea of logos we have continued on with. Let me fix your pillow, said Mildred. No, whispered Montag. The zipper displaces the button, and a man lacks just that much time to think while dressing at dawn. A philosophical hour, and thus a melancholy hour. Philosophical hour means that it's a thinking hour. A lot of people get up really early in the morning so they can think better. The thinking hour. And thus a melancholy hour is kind of like a saddened, creepy hour. That's a simple definition. You're going to wake up early to think? Oh, that's a sad way. That's a sad hour of thinking. So instead, we're going to make it simple for you. Instead of having to work on buttons and have time to think, just replace it with a zipper. Much more easy. Much easier, I should say. Much more easier. Much easier. And so you don't have to think as much. You don't have to sit there for as long. You can just be entertained more if you go do something else. Mildred said, Here, get away, said Montag. Life becomes one big pratfall, Montag. Everything bang, boof, and wow. Wow, said Mildred, yanking at the pillow. For God's sake, let me be, cried Montag passionately. Beatty opened his eyes wide. Mildred's hand had frozen behind the pillow. Her fingers were tracing the book's outline. As the shape became familiar, her face looked surprised and then stunned. Her mouth opened to ask a question. Empty the theaters, save for clowns, and furnish the rooms with glass walls and pretty colors running up and down the walls, like confetti or blood or sherry or sauterne. You like baseball, don't you, Montag? So, what saves Montag here is the fact that Captain Beatty keeps talking, surprisingly here. It allows him to ignore Mildred for a brief few more moments. But also the idea of emptying the theaters. Theaters, a lot of times movies can actually make you think about life, especially if it's a really good movie. It can make you like, yeah, that's a really important thing about life, or I should think more about that. Again, thinking is a negative thing in this society. So to fix that issue, we get rid of the movies. Instead, inside the theaters, we just put some clowns. And we have glass walls with pretty pictures falling over all around the place. So things you don't have to think about. It's kind of entertaining sometimes just to watch a clown, hit another clown with a hammer or whatnot. You don't have to think too much through that one. Then he catches everyone off guard with this question, baseball. And Montag says, baseball is a fine game. There we go. A little bit easier to see the entire thing. Would anyone else like to read? Anyone new? Go ahead. Dante.
Now, BD was almost invisible. Where's somewhere behind a screen of smoke? What's this? Asked Elizabeth. Was almost with the light. Montag eased back against her arms. What's this here? Sit down, Montag shouted. She jumped away, her hands empty. We're talking. Peter went on as if nothing had happened. You were bowling, don't you know? Montag, bowling, yes. And golf. fine game. Basketball, fine game. Early school, football, fine games, all of it. More sports,
Yeah, go ahead and read that one.
more sports for everyone, group spirit, fun, and you don't have to think it. Organized and super organized, super sports. More cartoons and books, more pictures. The mind drinks less and less. Impatient. Highways full of crowds going somewhere. Somewhere, nowhere. The gasoline refused. Towns turned into motels. People in anonymous surge from place to place, following the moon tides, living tonight in the room where you slept this noon and I the night before.
All right. So here, we're still seeing the idea of thinking is a negative thing in this society. Thinking is bad, we'll say, just as a simple way. Thinking is bad in this society. That's why, instead of coming up with interesting writings or books, or making them have really thought-provoking movies, instead, let's just do something fun, something you just react to, like sports. And I'm not saying that sports can't make someone intelligent. There is a lot of good thinking in there, I believe. But it's a lot more reactionary. So let's use that instead of reading and other things. More sports for everyone. Group spirit, fun, and you don't have to think, eh? Organized and super sports. More cartoons and books, more pictures. The mind drinks, I'm going to underline this, mind drinks less and less. We are seeing that today, and the less your brain thinks, the less your brain or your mind drinks, the more intelligent you get, the more impatient you're more likely going to be. Aren't we seeing that today? Heck, go on 240 right now. I guarantee you, you're going to see a lot of impatience, a lot of anger. Today, I had a lady driving in front of me that was going 25 down Rasco, and I almost just rammed into the back of her car because I was so annoyed at how slow she was getting. This is happening to us today. Then we have this idea here that highways full of crowds going somewhere, nowhere. The gasoline refugee. Towns turn into motels, people in nomadic surges from place to place. Following the moon tides, living tonight in the room where you slept this noon, and I the night before. This is the same idea the uncle told us about in the very beginning, the idea of the disposable tissue, right? You just blow on the tissue, throw it away. It's disposable. You don't need it. Same thing with life happening here. Disposable tissue idea by the uncle. After being told to get away, Mildred actually leaves. She actually listens to her husband for like the first time. Mildred went out of the room and slammed the door. The parlor aunts began to laugh at the parlor uncles. Notice they're the quotation marks because they're not real. There's just they call it the family. Now let's take up the minorities in our civilization, shall we? The bigger the population, the more minorities. Don't step on the toes of the dog lovers, the cat lovers, doctors, lawyers, merchants, chiefs, Mormons, Baptists, Unitarians, second-generation Chinese, Swedes, Italians, Germans, Texans, Brooklynites, Irishmen, people from Oregon or Mexico. The people in this book, this play, this TV serial are not meant to represent any painters. So he's been listing out a whole bunch of people and different types of people. He calls these minorities because you can all put yourself in a minority if you want to. Right? The minority of people who wear glasses, part of that minority. You can put yourself into almost any single category if you want to, any niche idea. And he's not just labeling this only as a regional thing or skin color. He's going all out with even people who like dogs and people who like cats. They're technically minorities. They're not really, everyone's going to like a dog. Everyone's going to like a cat. This idea itself is going to be really difficult, so make sure you're listening to this if you're not listening to anything else. Thank you very much, anyone who's falling asleep. If you're going to get anything, make sure you're getting this section right here, because it is one of the key parts and understandings of why society has changed right here. So in fact, I'm even going to put that right here why society has changed. Why? This by itself is what we're seeing here is a lot of logos in action, as well as we're still seeing some ethos, because remember he said he's one of the only ones to have known this because he's a fire chief. He knows these things and no one else does. So even the idea of him being the only one speaking is a form of ethos itself. But we see here a lot of logos happening in this in this section. So underneath why society has changed, put logos. Underneath where you put why society has changed, put logos. I'm going to continue reading this section. It's kind of long, and because it's kind of a difficult understanding, I'm going to continue reading it out loud. The people in this book, this play, this TV serial are not meant to represent any actual painters, cartographers, mechanics, anywhere. The bigger your market, Montag, the less you handle controversy. Remember that. All the minorities with their navels to be kept clean. That is a really important section. The bigger your market, Montag, the less you handle controversy. Remember that. This is a surprisingly large issue, especially today. Hey, let's take something rather controversial. A few years ago, I believe it was right when I was getting out of college, Chick-fil-A continued to denounce, as they have since their beginning, they stuck to more Christian values, and it continued to denounce homosexuality. All right? Because their market was so huge, a lot of people hated them after that. It didn't really stop them necessarily. And they were able to handle that controversy, but it made a lot of people angry. The larger your market, the more likely you are to fall to minorities. For instance, with that same idea, even if they did have Christian beginnings, let's argue, a lot of different companies are slowly changing to fit more of whatever minority is yelling at them. Their thoughts. That's happening today, in fact, especially in America, not too many other places, surprisingly. All the minorities with their navels to be kept clean, authors full of evil thoughts, lock up your typewriters. So they did. Magazines became a nice blend of vanilla tapioca. Books, so the damned snobbish critics said, were dishwater. No wonder books stopped selling, the critics said. But the public, knowing what it wanted, spinning happily, let the books survive. And the three-dimensional sex magazines, of course. There you have it, Montag. It didn't come from the government down. There was no dictum, no declaration, no censorship to start with. No. Technology, mass exploitation, and minority pressure carried the trick. Thank God. Today, thanks to them, you can stay happy all the time. You're allowed to read comics, the good old confessions, or trade journals. So this is exactly why society has changed. It tells us here, right here. It didn't come from the government down. There was no dictum, no declaration, no censorship to start with. No. Technology, mass exploitation, and minority pressure carried the trick. Thank God. It wasn't the government that did this. It was people. Technology allows us to exploit more and more people with our information. Heck, a lot of those stories you find online and those articles that you see on Facebook, quite a few of them are fake. But people are exploiting you with that information. So technology allows for mass exploitation. The more exploitation, the more minority pressure, the more people are not going to like it necessarily, and that carries the trick. I've told you before that it used to be a really famous book for English teachers to read, especially in like 10th and 9th grade, Huckleberry Finn. That's no longer read because of one use, because not just because of one use, but because in that day and age it was common for the N-word to be associated with a black person. In fact, that's one of the characters' names is N-word Jim. And that became such a big issue, which I do understand that it's caused so much pressure and exploitation by people that we stopped teaching it completely. Because of that issue right there. We can see this actually happening. Because we don't like something, we don't want to see it. And that means it goes away. But some things they kept the comic books. Comic books are easy to read, easy to understand. There's nothing too difficult about that. Oh, and they also kept three-dimensional sex magazines, of course, because there's no controversy there for them. Yes, but what about the firemen then? Asked Montag. Beatty leaned forward in the faint mist of smoke from his pipe. What more easily explained than natural? With school turning out more runners, jumpers, racers, tinkerers, grabbers, snatchers, flyers, and swimmers, instead of examiners, critics, knowers, and imaginative creators. Make sure that you are realizing that the examiners, critics, knowers, and imaginative creators are thinkers. The runners, jumpers, racers, tinkerers, grabbers, snatchers, flyers, and swimmers are doers. Remember, they don't like thinkers. They want people who just act, who don't think too much. They just do what they need to. Because schools started turning out more doers instead of thinkers, the word intellectual, of course, became the swear word it deserved to be. You always dread the unfamiliar. Surely you remember the boy in your own school class who was exceptionally bright. Did most of the reciting and answering while the others sat like so many leaden idols, hating him. And wasn't it this bright boy you selected for beatings and tortures after hours? Of course it was. We must all be alike. Not everyone born free and equal, as the Constitution says, but everyone made equal. Each man the image of every other. Then all are happy, for there are no mountains to make. This is something that was really common in the 50s and things like that, in TV shows especially, and we still see it in movies. You know the traditional TV nerd idea? Who's always going to beat up the TV nerd? The jocks, right? Because that's what that's actually when this idea started being created. Really, was in I would argue the 30s and 40s and 50s when this was printed. It was in the 50s. So the idea that smart person, I don't like them. They're smarter than I am. I'm going to beat up them or beat them up. That idea is happening here because they're not like me. Make sure that you have this underlined as well. Not everyone born free and equal, as the Constitution says, but everyone made equal. Each man the image of every other, then all are happy, for there are no mountains to make. The more everyone is the same, the easier everything is. That's what he's arguing here. And it's not necessarily true, but he's making this argument. He's being very persuasive with his use of logos here. He sounds right. He has a good logical base of his argument. So this sounds right. That's why we're seeing logos in action right here. Logos. No mountains to cower, to judge themselves against. So a book is a loaded gun in the house next door. Burn it. Take the shot from the weapon. Breach man's mind. Who knows who might be the target of the well-read man? Me? I won't stomach them for a minute. And so when houses were finally fireproof completely all over the world, you were correct in your assumption the other night. There was no longer need of firemen for the old purposes. They were given the new job as custodians of our peace of mind. The focus of our understandable and rightful dread of being inferior. Official censors, judges, and executors. That's you, Montag, and that's me. So, their job changed The reason why they don't want anyone to read books is because the more books you read, the smarter you are. And how dare you not be like me? You need to be exactly as intelligent as I am. Well, if that's the case, that means everyone needs to be very, very stupid. That's what he's saying here. It makes you feel like you're comparing yourself against someone. If someone's really obviously intelligent, they make the hundreds all the time, and you're sitting there trying to make, struggling to make 70s or whatever, you feel like you're comparing yourself to them. You don't like that. So get rid of it. Get rid of all their books. Get rid of all the thinkers. That way everyone's on the same playing field. It's not necessarily true, and it should never happen because we all are going to be different in so many ways. But the argument sounds right. Also, this tells us the change of job. They were given a new job as custodians of the peace of mind. They're the ones who get rid of books. They're the official censors, judges, and executors. They're the ones who take care of the issues, the problem here. Would anyone like to continue reading for us? Okay, Javion, how'd you go ahead?
The doors of the party are open, and you'll just stood there, looking at them, looking at BB and then in one place. Behind her were the walls of the room, filled with green, yellow, and orange fireworks, sizzling and bursting into some music composed almost completely of trap game, tones and symbols. Her mouth moved, and she was saying something that the sound covered. BB knocked his pipe to the palm of his pink hand, studied the ashes as if they were symbols he diagnosed and searched for the meaning.
All right, so Mildred comes back into and from the parlor. The TV is on behind her, and they can hear it get a little bit louder. And she is trying to say something. All right. Now, obviously, we know that she does not agree with Montag when it comes to books and things like that. So we could guess here that maybe she is trying to tell maybe someone something. We don't really necessarily know what she is doing, but we do know she is telling someone something. Go ahead and continue on.
You must understand that civilization is so bad that we can't have our own minority culture and spirit. Ask yourself, what do we want in this country above all? People who want to be happy, isn't there? Haven't you heard it all your life? I want to be happy, people say. Well, aren't they? Don't we keep them moving? Don't we give them fun? That's how we live for, isn't it? Pleasure for tribulation. And we must admit our culture provides plenty of these gifts.
So that's essentially what society is like now. Our civilization is so vast that we can't have our minorities upset and stirred. Remember earlier what he said, that the larger your organization, the harder you are able, the more difficult it is to handle controversy. Right there, that's continuing on this idea here. And we do have a lot of rhetorical questioning happening here. Him talking to them. And they do provide a lot of, as it says right here, we keep them moving. Don't we give them fun? Isn't that what happiness is? Being entertained? It's not. What people really want is not happiness. They want what's called joy. And joy is something that can't really be taken away from you. But happiness can. Happiness is just a quick feeling. But in this day and age, they don't think about that anymore. Instead, they think fun is what happiness is. Yes. Would someone like to continue? Dawson, go ahead.
Montag could lip read what Mildred was saying in the doorway. He tried not to look at her mouth because then Beauty might turn and read what was there too. Colored people don't like Little Black Samuel, burn it. White people don't feel good about Uncle Tom's Cabin, burn it. Someone reading a book on tobacco and cancer of the lungs. The cigarette people are weeping. Bum the book. Serenity, Montag. Peace, Montag. Take your fight outside. Better get into the incinerator. Criminals are unhappy and hating. Eliminate them too. 5 minutes after a person is dead, he's on his way to the big flu. The incinerator is serviced by helicopters all over the country. 10 minutes after death, a man's a speck of black dust. Let's not quibble over individuals with memorials. Forget them. Burn them all. Burn everything. Fire is bright and fire is clean.
All right, so we have here, for sure, Montag can see and understand what Mildred is talking, well, she's moving her mouth up and down. So we know that he can see her and that he can understand her, but he looks away. So we don't still know what she is saying. We still don't know that. But we also still get a little more of a simplified version of what he said earlier. Colored people don't like Little Black Sambo, burn it. White people don't feel good about Uncle Tom's Cabin, burn it. Someone's written a book on tobacco and cancer lungs. The cigarette people are weeping, burn the book. So that's what he is arguing, that if we just get rid of every single issue, if this person doesn't like this, get rid of it. If we continue to get rid of all those things, life will be simple. Everyone will love each other. It'll be nice and easy. That's not the case, though. This still is our form of logos being used. It's continuing on through most of this. Most of his argument is based in logos. A little bit is in pathos as well, but most of it is logos here. That statement there, fire is bright and fire is clean, but also fire destroys. He left that one out. The fireworks died in the parlor behind Mildred. She had stopped talking at the same time. A miraculous coincidence. Montag held his breath. There was a girl next door, he said slowly. She's gone now. I think dead. I can't even remember her face, but she was different. How? How did she happen? If this world is so different, if everything has changed so much, how did someone like Clarice happen? Why was she a thinker, even though after so long of people wanting to just be doers? How did she happen? Beatty smiled. Here or there, that's bound to occur. Clarice McClellan. We have a record on her family. We've watched them carefully. Heredity and environment are funny things. You can't rid yourselves of all the odd ducks in just a few years. The home environment can undo a lot you try to do at school. That's why we've lowered the kindergarten age year after year until now we're almost snatching them from the cradle. We had some false alarms on the McClellans when they lived in Chicago. Never found a book. Uncle had a mixed record, antisocial. The girl, she was a time bomb. A family had been feeding her subconscious, I'm sure, from what I saw of her school record. She didn't want to know how a thing was done, but why. So remember, she didn't just want to, how to do this. She didn't want to be a doer. She wanted to be a thinker. Why do we even need this? That's a thinking question there. But also, we have here happening, heredity and environment are funny things. You can't get rid of yourselves all of odd ducks in just a few years. The home life, the home environment can undo a lot of what you try to do at school. That's true. Ladies and gents, if all you ever try to learn is in here in school, you're going to fail. It takes a whole lot more effort, and not just in school. You have a lot of things you can learn also at home. Y'all think I got the way I am just from what I learned in school? No. Because, guess where I went to school? Anyone want to guess? Anyone?
Was it here in Mississippi?
It was here in Mississippi, yes. That's where I went to college, yes. How about high school?
Was it South Mississippi? Was it somewhere in the South? Or
Y'all just want to guess? It was here, y'all. I went to school here at this school. Some of y'all's teachers taught me in general. Notice here, heredity and environment are funny things. You can't rid yourselves of all the odd ducks in just a few years. The home environment can undo a lot of what you do at school. Even somewhere, as I think South Haven High School is actually surprisingly great. Whenever someone tries to talk bad about South Haven, I get into my South Haven mood. I'm like, no, we're a great school here, all right? But the things you learn at school are not exactly the things that you need all the time. We're supposed to give you just a basis of understanding with life. I know you don't like the mitochondria as the powerhouse of the cell. It's a basic understanding of biology. But you know that was something that people 100 years ago never knew. You have that basis of understanding, but you're not going to pick up everything you need here. Home life is also important. That's what they're doing here. We try to indoctrinate you. We are, some way, to try to teach you to be a certain way. Home life can undo that. Make sure you know that. This is not the most important place. Home is also important. Make sure of that. Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox. That can be embarrassing. You ask why a lot of things, and you wind up I'm very unhappy indeed. If you keep at it, the poor girl's better off dead. Yes, dead. Luckily, queer ones like her don't happen often. Queer here is not talking about how we use the derogatory form of it. It just means odd, strange, different here. Odd or strange. Luckily, queer ones like her don't happen often. We know how to nip most of them in the bud early. You can't build a house without nails and wood. If you don't want a house built, hide the nails and wood. If you don't want a man unhappy politically, don't give him two sides to a question to worry him. Give him one. Better yet, give him none. Let him forget there is such a thing as war. If the government is inefficient, top-heavy, and tax-mad, better it be all those than people worry over it. Peace, Montag. Give the people contests they win by remembering the words to more popular songs, or the names of state capitals, or how much corn Iowa grew last year. Cram them full of non-combustible data. Give them information they don't really need. Chock them so damned full of facts, they feel stuffed but absolutely brilliant with information. Then they'll feel they're thinking. They'll get a sense of motion without moving. And they'll be happy because facts of that sort don't change. Don't give them any slippery stuff like philosophy or sociology or to tie things up with. That way lies sadness, melancholy. Any man who can take a TV wall apart and put it back together again, and most men can nowadays, is happier than any man who tries to slide, rule, measure, and equate the universe, which just won't be measured or equated without making man feel bestial and lonely. I know, I've tried it. To hell with it. So bring on your clubs and parties, your acrobats and magicians, your daredevils, jet cars, motorcycle helicopters, your sex and heroin, more of everything to do with automatic reflex. If the drama is bad, if the film says nothing, if the play is hollow, sting me with the theremin, loudly. I'll think I'm responding to the play when it's only a tactile reaction to vibration. But I don't care. I just take the solid entertainment. I just like solid entertainment. He says right here, I know I've tried it, to hell with it. He's tried to be a thinker. Part of philosophy, one of the more important questions of philosophy is, why are you here? Why are we here as people? There's a lot of dark thoughts down that track. You have to think a lot about yourself, how tiny you are compared to the whole world, how the whole world is so really tiny compared to the whole universe. You feel tiny. You feel like a beast, is what he says. Why does anyone want to think like that? That's sad. No, to hell with that is what he says. So bring your clubs, your excitements, your sex and heroin, more of everything that you can feel, that you're automatic reflexing. That's what I want, because I don't have to think with those things. They're easy, necessarily. Anyone like to continue on? We're almost done. Anyone else want to read? Go ahead.
Speedy got up. I must be going. Lecture's over. I hope I've clarified things. The most important thing for you to remember, Montag, is we're the Happiness Boys, the Dixie duo, you and I and the others. We stand against the small tide of those who want to make everyone unhappy with conflicting theory and thoughts. We have our fingers in the dike. Hold steady. Don't let the torrent of melancholy and pure philosophy drown our world. We depend on you. I don't think you realize how important we are to our happy world as it stands now. Beatty shook Montag's snuffed hand. Montag still sat as if the house were collapsing about him, and he could not move in the bed. Mildred had vanished from the door.
Stop there for me. We stand against the small tide of those who want to make everyone unhappy with conflicting theory and thought. We depend on you. I don't think you realize how important you are and we are to our happy world as it stands now. If you're trying to build someone else up, trying to make them seem important, what is that? You should listen to me because I am this. What type of rhetoric is that? Ethos happening there. So far, he has used each type of rhetoric. Pathos at first, then a lot of logos, and finally now he's using ethos, making him feel like, oh, no, I am important. So this is a little bit of ethos. Why I should love my job here. Go ahead and continue on.
One last thing, said Beatty. At least once in his career, Every fireman gets an itch. What did the book say, he wonders. Oh, to scratch that itch, Ed. Well, Montag, take my word for it. I've had to read a few in my time to know what I was about, and the books say nothing. Nothing you can teach or believe. They're about non-existent people, figments of imagination with their fiction. And if they're non-fiction, it's worse. One professor calling another an idiot, one philosopher screaming down another's gullet. All of them running about, pointing out the stars and extinguishing the sun. You come away lost. Well then, what if the fireman accidentally really not intending anything takes the book home with him? Montag twitched. The open door looked at him with a straight, vacant eye. A natural error. Curiosity alone, said Beatty. We don't get over anxious or mad. We let the fireman keep the book 20 hard hours. If he hasn't burned it by then, we simply come and burn it for him. Of course. Montag's mouth was dry.
So, notice here, actually, it's supposed to be 24 hours. I don't know why it messed up there. But he's given him a way out. Captain Beatty knows that something's wrong with Montag, that he may even have a book. Remember a few readings ago, he even seemed like he was suspicious of him. What did the kids say? That he was sus? I got a couple of chuckles, all right. So, I'll take that. But he's given a way out. He has 24 hours with those books before you're supposed to get rid of them. That's his way out. I think we're ending just in time for my computer to almost die. Well, Montag, will you take another later shift today? Will we see you tonight, perhaps? I don't know, said Montag. What? Said Beatty, faintly surprised. Remember, Captain Beatty said all this stuff off the top of his head. That means that he's practiced this speech before, or he at least has said it before, and it's usually always worked. So he's surprised when this didn't work, when he wasn't convincing. What? He said faintly surprised? He thought that he would convince him. Remember, he walked in comfortable. He knew exactly what he was about to say and what he was about to do. It was like he had rehearsed this before. He had thought that he was going to be convincing enough. Montag shut his eyes. I'll be in later. Maybe. We'd certainly miss you if you didn't show, said Beatty, putting his pipe in his pocket thoughtfully. I'll never come in again, thought Montag. Get well and keep well, said Beatty. He turned and went out through the open door. Montag watched through the window as Beatty drove away in his gleaming yellow flame-colored Beetle with the black char-colored tires. Across the street and down the way, the other houses stood with their flat fronts. What was it Clarice had said one afternoon? No front porches, my uncle says. There used to be front porches. And people sat there sometimes at night talking when they wanted to talk, rocking and not talking when they didn't want to talk. Sometimes they just sat there and thought about things, turned things over. My uncle says the architects got rid of the front porches because they didn't look well. But my uncle says that that was merely rationalizing it. The real reason, hidden underneath, might be they didn't want people sitting like that, doing nothing, rocking, talking. That was the wrong kind of social life. People talked too much, and they had time to think, so they ran off with the porches. And the gardens, too. Not many gardens anymore to sit around in. And look at the furniture. No rocking chairs anymore. They're too comfortable. Get people up and running around. My uncle says, and my uncle, her voice faded. That's where we're going to be leaving off today with this idea of he thinking back and thinking about Clarice with what she said about thinking.
Seniors, CTC, class change.
We ended it just at the perfect time, ladies and gents. You have just a few more minutes before you're going to get dismissed. Good job, and thank you all so much for listening. Those people who did, those of you who fell asleep, that's on your own.